There's just 1 minute to showtime.
The engines are on.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
When they wrote up the systems and the rule set that we use, did working people get to write a line? What class of men on pen and paper jotted down their clues, with capital the heart of their design? When 90 million want a thing, but some shareholders say no, which class of people get to have their way? The people read the fine print and say that this thing has got to go, and we'll start writing a new contract here today. Don't you know that hundreds will work and one man keeps the money? They don't think they gotta tell us why. When they say the new social contract, all the bosses will be gobsmacked and everyone will want a sign. Oh, yeah, everyone will want a sign.
Hello, cousins, and welcome to an all-new and live episode of Social Contract. I am Nicolette, and I'm here with my most illustrious co-host, our local mayor, Mr. Mayor Jared. Hello, Jared.
What's going on, everybody? Good morning.
If anybody is wondering if we get paid to do this or making money or some kind of psyop, I just got a notification on my desktop that said that I just made off a Redbubble sale 47 cents in British pounds. So that is how good things are going. So I don't know. I'll find out after I choke on my spit. I'll find out later what the conversion of that is. But
British people.
Yeah. So thanks to the British person who probably bought a sticker. I appreciate that.
Thank you, friend of the show, England, for
yeah, thanks for the friend of the show. Yeah, I am actually planning to get some buyable stuff for, our logos and things like that into my shop, but it's a long process, and I haven't exactly had a demand for it yet, so nobody's beating down the door asking just yet. But we are excited though, because hopefully that day will come soon. Because next week we will be celebrating a year of Social Contract. Yay! Excitement. So yeah, streamers, air horn.
That's right. We did it. We've cleared hurdles that few people seem to clear by the ability of following a schedule and being relatively consistent.
Yes, we did. We managed to do it. I'm proud of us. I'm glad that we were able to do it. We wouldn't be here if things weren't such dog shit in the world. So I mean, there's that. But we are here to kind of commiserate with you and talk about it, and basically keep our heads from blowing off our shoulders and shooting into the sun because we're so mad about how things are. So,
well, if anything can be learned from the most recent election, it's like, apparently, if you watch any of the state media, like whether it be MSNBC, Fox News, or something else, the picture of the world that was painted by them seemed to not be horribly accurate, did it? I don't know how many people are like, regardless of how many people still intentionally are watching the state media. It sure doesn't seem to be everybody anymore. It seems like most people are doing like there is no now one source you go to figure out what's going on. It's just people have realized, oh, you can't go to just cable TV and figure out what's actually going on. So now everyone watches some network of various collection of streamers and YouTube people and TikTok things that you see, and that's how you get news now in America.
And I think that's especially good thing for us. But the idea of it is, I think probably if you looked at the numbers, I would guess just like the way we saw in the votes, like people participating in, red or blue, I would say the main amount of like American viewers still subscribe to mainstream news, probably especially their local newses. because I still have that idea that if it's on the news, it must be true. But I agree. It is a kind of a disillusion moment going on, especially tied to this election, where people are just like, "Fuck this, enough. Everything is stupid." So somebody everywhere kind of has a podcaster that they like, or like a Twitter feed that they like, or whatever, or like to troll, or that kind of thing. So we are kind of, I think, moving into the era of streaming news,
alternative media, as it will be called,
indie media, alternative media. And I think that there is something to be said about independently produced things. Like, yeah, of course, a lot of people's production value could be like, CNN. Like, we, of course, would love to have a producer while we're sitting here doing this, or, like somebody to handle the, other things, and, or just everybody'd like that. But I think that there's also like an honesty quality to it too, where it's just people talking to people. And that's kind of where we were coming from when we were starting the show, and what we wanted to do. When we got started, we kind of had to rush together really quickly. So, and we'll talk about more about that next week. We'll talk about, we may get to some topic stuff based next week, but we'll probably just be hanging out, having a good time. So, and talking about how the show has come together and some funny moments and things like that. But
meaning I'll have a book.
yeah, and now we have a book. Someday, maybe, though. I mean, I do technically have books on the market, so if we have one, I'll write one someday, maybe. But yeah, no, we don't have any products out just yet. But in the future, that we see that coming. But what we do have, unfortunately, is more election news. We were hoping kind of to be able to get away from it somewhat. But we never are going to ever. As socialist streamers, I mean, that's basically what we're going to be talking about most of the time, especially at a time now we're about a week away from past the election. Liberals are losing their mind. The recount stuff is, I think, hilarious. Not Trump cheated, hashtag. Not because I would put it past him, obviously, but because he didn't need to. Like, that was the thing that people are having a really hard time reckoning with, unless you actually voted for him, is that he didn't need to. The polling was off. The polling is always off, and we're also starting to see some of the internal polling, some of the way that the Democrats really wasted money on celebrity endorsements, to the point that they paid Oprah $1 million, billionaire Oprah, $1 million to do that interview. And they paid so many celebrities so much money, they ran out of money and couldn't afford Alanis Morissette at the end of the day. So
even if you want to vote for the Democrats, man, stop giving either of these parties your money. You see what they're doing with it. You just gave your money directly to Oprah. It's like, good job.
You did. And I know that they take advantage of that kind of a thing. Even like back in the Bernie campaign, when they were like, could I just have a couple of bucks? And you're like, hell yeah, you can, Bernie.
So I have never donated money.
Political campaign
and all that shit. After the Bernie campaign ended, where'd all your money go? It went right into Act Blue, which eventually went to pay for Beyonce to go and to go and lose an election along with the help of the Cheney family.
Alanis Morissette, so I don't know if she's bothered by that or not. Something tells me she isn't. But the thing of it is that every election cycle, this is basically the first time we've been around for an election cycle, our show, not us as persons, for our show to have coverage of it. So it is been a very unique situation to be like a person involved and somebody commentating on it, because we would not be here had we not spent a solid amount of time as shit libs. We were there, and we admit it, we fully admit it, we do. So, there may have been a time when we would have been like, yeah, Beyonce, but not this time. And I was thinking earlier today about, it was so bad back in 2016. I remember the next election day that came up, like after, like when Trump won, and it was like the next day, I was like having nightmares about Trump that night. And I got up the next day, and I remember I was just kind of sitting here numb, and I played this video. It was Misha Collins, and for those of you who don't know, that's Castiel from Supernatural, which I don't know who doesn't know that, but just in case you don't, because I'm huge into Supernatural, like everyone. But he was like, "Don't give up, everybody! Don't give up on the country that I love." And he started crying, and I started crying. Now I cannot like listen to a word that comes out of the man's mouth. But
I was fully there also, like 2016. I was going to work the next day all fucking grumpy and blah, blah, blah. Our country's over. Everything's fucking screwed
everything's
now.
over. Yeah, and now I don't give a shit. I don't care at
Because
all. Like,
we literally went through it. It's like I don't understand how you can find in yourself enough excitement and energy to get all like, oh my god, the country's done, the camps are gonna open up. It's like, first of all, we've had camps the whole time. They just changed from camps to migrant detention facilities because Biden was in charge there is still in charge there for a little bit. Hey, he could still let them all out. All the kids could come out of the cages tomorrow. He could do that, but he doesn't want to. And now it's like, well, we went through 4 years of it already. Like, do you think he's saving the super secret evil plan for now? Like, oh, only on his second term will he do the... I hope this time he actually puts a lot of Democrat criminals in jail. Nancy Pelosi should be in jail. And, like, I don't know people who even disagree with that who still vote for Democrats. Like, just the whole insider trading nonsense should be enough that she should, like, be penniless in a federal prison right now. Yeah. Like, that'd be kind of awesome. Like, what if he actually does that? Are you going to say, boo, oh no?
Yeah. Yeah, like,
Not take Nancy.
Like, I love her. I love her so much. Like, you need to go to jail, too. Like, I don't want to hear about this kind
Nancy and her $25,000 ice cream fridge.
Right, yeah. And, you know, that's just where we are. Like, that's the feeling, I think, among a lot of socialist-leaning, communist-leaning people at this point, leftists, whatever. I don't care about the term. Whatever you want to call it is fine. But just not, you know, red-blue. We're just not red-blue at this point. But I do think that this might be another, just like it was for us in 2016 era, another push forward for people to migrate away from the Democratic Party more than they did.
Everybody I know, I saw people posting today where it's like my presidential election trajectory. It's like 2016, crying because Trump won. 2020, furious because they screwed over Bernie Sanders. 2024, well, of the lesser of two evils, kind of Trump if you really like. You've just gone through this trajectory of screw. Like, you end up at this point where it's like screw both parties. Which once again, the winner of the election was people who did not vote.
Yeah. And the thing of it is we're going to sit here and everybody's going to be mad and Democrats are going to be mad and everybody's going to be mad about whatever. And in 4 years, we're going to be sitting here having the same dumbass conversation because everybody's going to take stupid pills and jump on the AOC, John Fetterman, Pete Buttigieg.
You know, vote for Buttigieg.
You know, right? I don't know, like some combination of dum-dums they're in. And they're going to be like, why couldn't they do it this time?
Buttigieg will bomb Iran even more so than Mike Pompeo or whoever in the Trump area.
Those guys are the future, everyone. Like, everybody, like, that's like, there's not new people who are going to come up in this system. Either the system changes because we somehow manage to force using union power or something, ranked choice voting, which Vermont has, but make it nationwide, which that's still just a small fix. But it's, something that would give more power to the people and allow people to probably encourage more people to vote if they could vote based on just who they wanted, and that was it. Like, you wouldn't have to be worried about, like, forced into a binary choice.
The Democrats might even find somebody you haven't heard of before, and they'll throw them out there, and then you'll look into their policy and go, "Oh wow, no, they're not a different person. It's just a different George Bush, Dick Cheney, Obama, Hillary Clinton, like, all have the exact same policy." It's like, wow, they found a different guy to say the exact same thing. That's why John Fetterman's interesting. If you're a conspiracy theorist, he used to be a half decent guy where you'd be like, wow, I kind of agree with something John Fetterman says. Then he gets elected to the Senate. Then he suddenly had a stroke that caused a lot of brain damage and made him a Zionist. And people will probably go, no, he's been saying that beforehand. I don't know, I guess I just didn't hear about it. But it's weird how as soon as he got a national position, like a statewide, he became a senator, suddenly he got brain damage. It's like, did they hit him in the head with a rock? Like, did he get in the Senate and they just clubbed him? Yeah. We got to beat you till you're stupid. All right, now you can be a senator.
Because we're looking at, like we said, we're looking at the people who are going to be in the next cycle. It's AOC, it's Pete Buttigieg, it's Gavin Newsom. Like, it's these same crap
Gavin
actor.
Newsom.
I thought he was going to be the nominee. Like, I was betting on it practically. Like,
He'll be the first presidential Democrat candidate to lose California if they run him.
yeah, I thought for sure, like, before they said it was going to be Kamala Harris, and they were still just speculating that Biden was going to drop out because he's like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to drop out. I'm not going to do it. 4 more years of me. And I thought for sure it was going to be Gavin Newsom because he was making a big play for it. He was like, look at me clean up the homeless camps myself, screw these guys. And, he was pictures taking him, pictures of him reading Beloved or some shit. And, and it's just like, dude, now it's like that was pathetic. But then at the time I was looking at it like, this looks exactly like the guy that they would want, And I know we can acknowledge that there was probably a small faction comparatively of people who just wouldn't vote for Kamala because of race, because of being a woman, or because of being a childless woman. But I think that pales in comparison to the power that people were just not willing to accept that Trump has, and going right back to 2016 about man is make money me. So that's where we're right back in it.
So I was talking a second ago about Pompeo, and now that the election is over, we can look a little bit towards the future. And an interesting thing happened in the last week, talking about pushing people in a direction. Well, don't worry, this is like a shot chaser situation. So if it sounds like I'm being complimentary here, don't worry, it's gonna circle back around. So we have Trump. First, it was like before the election, he was on Joe Rogan talking kindly about Mike Pompeo, and MAGA is rightfully just like, hey, Mike Pompeo is one of those swamp people that you said that you like that we blame, we being MAGA in this situation, blame for your first term not going super well. They think that like his foreign policy especially was very, very bad because he wants to go to war with everybody. Maybe you shouldn't make him part of your cabinet. And then in the course of a day, MAGA Twitter had a whole thing where they're like, no Pompeo, screw Pompeo, Pompeo out, hashtag whatever, and that became a trending thing. And then Trump put out a tweet, I will not be putting Nikki Haley or Mike Pompeo in my cabinet. And it's like, wow, MAGA was effectively able to push Trump farther left in one day than 4 years of Biden, of anybody being able to push Biden anywhere, which was not at all, because Biden isn't and wasn't actually the person running anything. He's just this old corpse that they put up in front of it. Let me read from MSNBC why Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo won't be on Trump's second-term team. Donald Trump's second-term team is just now starting to take shape, with the president-elect selecting Susie Wiles, to serve as his White House Chief of Staff, and House Republican Conference Chair Elise Stefanik, to be the next U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Very big Israel people. Shocking. At the same time, we're also learning about who won't be joining him. President-elect Donald Trump said Saturday he will not ask former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley or his former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. So Nikki Haley's weird. Nikki Haley does not want to be doing the war in Ukraine, but she really wants to go to war with China. So it's like, pick your poison in that situation. Trump says, I will not be inviting former Ambassador Haley or Secretary Mike Pompeo to join the Trump administration, which is currently in formation, said Trump. I very much enjoyed and appreciated working with them previously, and I would like to thank them for their service to our country. So I don't know if this article is going to mention the whole Twitter shoving people around thing, but that if you don't think that was a part of it, I think you're mistaken. There is one of the shadow, I guess, benefits of a Trump presidency is he does seem to respond to his electorate just because he likes having good ratings. He likes when people like him. He wants to say whatever thing will make the most people happy because he just likes being liked. He's a TV man. It's that never really left him, and I think that's one of his strengths politically is that he wants people to like him and is kind of good at getting people to like him. So when his base freaks out, he will make a move. Now, let us see what that move became. Because if you remember, we were all screaming at Harris about Palestine for like a year, and no movement of any kind. In fact, she started kicking Muslim people out of her rallies, seemingly for no reason. Like people who aren't even protesting were getting like kicked out of rallies. Like, you look kind of Muslim, you can't come into the rally. So what did Trump end up doing? Oh no, he's going to choose Marco Rubio instead. How much better. Wow. Congratulations, everyone. We've drained the swamp.
We did it.
By putting Marco Rubio. I mean, nothing is. He hasn't have the job yet. It's not January. There's still time for them to swap him out with someone else. But it's like, okay, what we'll do is kind of like we were just talking about with how they'll find some Democrat who has the exact same policy and might throw them in there, even though it might seem like a new or different person. That's what it seems like Trump's going to do. If you shout down one of the swamp picks, he will simply replace them with a different swamp
More popular
pick.
dude, yeah.
Marco Rubio is not popular amongst MAGA. They don't like him. Republicans like him. MAGA does not. And those are two separate things, and people have to start fucking conceptualizing it that way. That's why none of these other Republicans seem to be winning when Trump endorses them necessarily. It's like, no. Trump and that whole thing is kind of separate from the just normal Republican Party. The normal Republican Party is now, I guess, Democrats, because that's where, like, the Cheneys and Bushes have all gone.
Whatever the hell. Words mean nothing.
Yeah, right. These categories certainly don't, because there's one ruling class, and they have certain interests. It's funny that the Reuters point they put here is that Rubio opposed 95 billion military aid to Ukraine, and it's like, he loves sending money to Ukraine. He talks all day about how much money he wants to send to Ukraine. I think that was like the border fight. So like he was doing a Let's Go Brandon style, screw the Democrats, so we have to vote against everything they do. So now they can say he's against funding Ukraine, which he's not. Like that bullet point, if anything, would be a positive for MAGA. But no, top China hawk sanctioned by Beijing. Very important for why he's getting chosen. Top role could bolster Republicans' Latino gains. It's also a signal that, because Rubio does a lot of campaigning about how, like, Cuba's evil and we must destroy Cuba. So,
I was about to say among Miami Cubans. I mean, like.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
He's going to be, this is a signal that they're going to ramp up fighting against countries like Mexico, Venezuela, all of Latin America. Bolivia is going to have a couple more coups, turns out. If he's the guy who gets
the whole world. That's a winning plan.
Yeah, so like anybody out there saying, oh, peace candidate Donald Trump, well, I mean, he isn't president yet and hasn't done these things yet, but he's certainly signaling like the wars will continue. I'm just going to say they aren't.
Yeah. Well, like that was sort of the popular assumption among his base. Like when we talked about before, people projecting onto these candidates shit that they never said that they would do or not do, that his, what would you call it? His, like the Alex Jones, Dave Smith or something like that. Like they went on there like, he will stop this. He will stop the wars.
Stop the forever wars, which is
the
thing he himself said.
And it's the only way that would happen is if somehow he found there was a way to make more money by not doing war. And there isn't, because it's like the most lucrative way for politicians to shut their mouth and sit down and not have their head blown off
for the people who
by the CIA.
The people who fund and finance our politicians, yes, make far more money that way. I'll argue that overall, there's far more money to be made if you do things China style, which is, we don't really give a shit what's happening in your country. That's your business. We're going to do deals, however, internationally that benefit both of us, which is vastly more profitable just overall for the general populace of both countries involved. But it does not do the most efficient funneling of money upward, and it allows these underdeveloped countries to develop. There's a reason Africa really likes doing deals with China, and it's not because they love frickin' Kung Pao chicken. It's because when they go and do deals with them, they get roads and hospitals and electricity and water. And they don't really give it like, oh, but that African country is doing this thing that it's like, that's not our business. We are here we want XY resource. They want XY infrastructure / resource. We're going to make some deals. And there is a universe in which Trump, the deal maker, makes deals and could be this peacetime president, but like I think that's when he gets killed. Like that's
when you're just rolling down the street with your waving at your MAGA crowd in your parade, and you suddenly your head pops off. So yeah, I think that I've said it like twice now, but that really was the turning point in where it's like we were going to have leadership to the point where it's like we're going to do what we're told by the CIA and the military industrial complex and sit down and shut up. So that's why there's been no effective leaders for like 60 years. But anyway.
It says of Rubio, Rubio was arguably the most hawkish option in Trump's shortlist for Secretary of State, and he talks about he's softening his stances to align more closely with Trump's views. Well, let's see what actually happens. See, Rubio is smart enough to know how to lie to get these positions, and then once you're in there, just do whatever the hell you want.
And we've been talking about that the entire election cycle. That why aren't these people just making up lies? And we just got a question in the chat from Are You Time Traveler 2 asking what we thought about Elon and Kennedy RFK Jr. being uh, tapped for, I don't know, consulting positions, whatever. I heard just today that Elon's constant presence is creeping people out, apparently. Um, within the structure, like they not just like in general him being there, like kind of a thing, but like just that he's always just being there and it's freaking people out. But I think that I don't know really kind of the inner work. This one sort of I can't really predict the feeling of, because like we all kind of think that we could read people pretty well, but it's sort of like I don't know if Trump feels about Elon like a reverie or he's just like trying to figure out how to get something out of him, honestly. Like I don't know what's really going on there. I feel a little confused as far as that goes. But I think Trump is at least smart enough to know if he at the very least strings Elon Musk along and makes him think that he can get something out of it, who is stupid enough to believe it, I'm sure, of that one at least, that he feels like he will get something out of it. So he wants to be a super billionaire too. So I think
I'd be curious to see if he actually gets any kind of official cabinet post, because like I can see him hanging around, because like it's not that X is actually this bastion of free speech like Elon wants to make it out to be. It certainly isn't. If you start going out and saying things that are a little bit too commie, you're still going to get your stuff taken down. You're still going to get these weird community notes of like this is a lie. And it's like, no, this is actually real. But of all the platforms, compared to like Facebook, Instagram, whatever, it is the least censored of them. It's like so I can see how like there would be some natural media partnership of like, hey, let us ally together because we're all getting attacked by the same people. I don't know that and talking about Kennedy, if anything, depending on what cabinet position, he'd be one of the less bad choices for it, depending on which one they put him in. I mean, his whole stance on Israel is why we wrote off his campaign from the start. As soon as you found out, like, oh, he just wants to keep blasting up Palestine also, while calling himself a peace candidate. A lot of those people seem to do that. I don't think I think he is not being actually considered for these cabinet positions, and that, if anything, is probably a negative, because they're going to be throwing in, I don't even remember the two names, but they have like even more establishment, even swampier people. It's like, put Kennedy in charge of the frickin', let him release how they killed his dad. His uncle, you know what I mean? I think that RFK, if unleashed on certain positions, might do something that would actually shake things up a little bit, which is why I don't think he's getting a big cabinet position. I don't think you're going to see Secretary of Education Kennedy or whatever.
It was like some sort of a quote. I don't know if it was like the whole thing. Like he might have been like, haha, just kidding. But Trump saying something about that he was basically just going to let him go to town on like the World Health or like our like age like the
they promised to cut $2 trillion.
Yeah, so it's like that's something that I think would be a bad thing. What given his brain worms and some weird medical opinions and HGH and all of that kind of.
Oh yeah,
thing.
Department of Health. That's where he would want to go.
Yeah, that's one. I couldn't think. I'm mentally combining all of the acronyms together. Yeah, that I think that would be maybe a bad idea. But if I think it might appease his people to put him in there somewhere, which is exactly what you're saying, why he won't do it. So
he might be a little weird. Big chunks of the quote deep state seem to really not like RFK, like the Democrat section of it specifically. I don't even know exactly why, because a lot of his opinions, the ones that really matter, are right in line and entirely compatible with the establishment. So that's why it's always weirder to see who is like outside of the core group.
And that again, but I think the bottom line here is something we've been talking about for over a year now, is that no matter which side of anyone, they are all aligned on Israel. We have like one person, Rashida Tlaib, who's like, no, stop it, and she got it reelected, by the way. But
because everyone is just so we just hate brown women so much we couldn't possibly vote for one, except for all the districts where people who actually stood on the tiniest bit of principle. She's still going to vote for that military budget. Like she's still definitely part of the whole machine.
Just to say, and kind of to show you that while local elections are more important, even if there's no way that your candidate is going to win, that some states have ballot initiatives where they are able to say we want certain things to happen that will actually benefit their communities. And time after time, people lean into these what are considered nowadays fringy left ideals of wanting healthcare, of wanting, more jobs opportunities, wanting to legalize cannabis. These obvious things that people on smaller levels are greenlighting over and over and over. Or
when it actually gets put up to a vote, like, should we
Right.
raise minimum wage? That usually passes when it's like a state doing it.
Exactly. And that's the way politics should be conducted. We should not be voting on which idiot can not even bother to lie at this point about whatever. We need to just be voting on the things we want to happen the way you would in a local election, but in a national type of a way. Because if the question was, you posed a question to the entire United States, should we have universal health care? Yes, no. Okay, so even people who are, maybe these weirdos who like their work insurance and paying, gigantic premiums, who they, might know a family member who couldn't afford cancer treatments or something, or they, a MAGA person who might be like, yeah, my Social Security doesn't go nearly far enough, my Medicaid sucks, my Medicare sucks, blah, blah, blah. So I don't have any doubt that would, win overwhelmingly, but that's probably exactly why they won't allow these types of things, like national initiatives, to happen, because then people would be beholden to actually having to do those things.
So I want to talk about someone who is pushing leftist, or at least leftward. I don't know. I hate using these direction terms because they mean basically nothing. Economic policy that I would, at least on surface level, agree with. If you haven't heard of a woman who won in landslide fashion and her electorate being overwhelmingly poor and rural people. We have Claudia Sheinbaum. Also, Sheinbaum. She is Jewish. So it's really funny whenever they talk about Mexico and their highly anti-Semitic stance of not sending money and weapons into Israel. It's like, their president is literally a Jewish lady. What are you even talking about? None of this makes any sense. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has launched also, I know some Mexicans now, like just who are my friends, and the more wealthy and liberal they are, the more they hated Claudia Sheinbaum, and I'm like, oh man, this is an international thing. This is just constant. You're this easily tricked, and same thing with her. She was identified as like, oh, she's sexist, anti-gay, racist, blah, 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 like all the same stuff that they throw at people here whenever they get a little bit economically left. They threw that all at her also, and I'm just like, I know I'm not from your country and I don't fully understand the politics, but like, what do you mean? Just looking at her, it's like, really 90% or whatever of she won an insane landslide. Like, this massive percentage of Mexicans are just horrible, racist, bigoted, homophobic, whatever the Anyway, she launched a comprehensive housing initiative to address the country's housing deficit by building 1 million homes and offering zero-interest mortgages. The zero-interest mortgages are the thing that interest me here. The program, aimed at supporting vulnerable groups, focuses on female-led households, young indigenous communities, senior citizens. It's like, seems like she's doing everything that the quote left here in America would want you to be doing. Now, the focus of this program is to provide affordable housing to those in greatest need, especially young Mexicans, Sheinbaum stated, contrasting her approach with previous right-wing administrations that prioritized profit-driven projects over public needs. So it sounds like they were doing kind of what you do here in the U.S., where they say, we're going to build housing for everybody, and what that really means is, here comes massive handouts for contractors. Random, like, lowest bidder, race to the bottom, we're going to build the cheapest, crappiest housing. Or it ends up being like, well, we need to build these many units of luxury housing, and then as a deal, as a favor to the city to get the contract through and justify all the public money and tax breaks they'll receive, okay, we'll put in a nominal number of units that are supposed to be, of quote, affordable housing, and it all just becomes like, all right, how can we try and convince these landowners to be nice? Like, please, sir, please rent this for a slightly lesser amount of money. No, we're not going to do price controls. No, we're not going to have any kind of control over this. We're just going to hope that you pinky promise, do the thing you said you were going to do, and it never really works out. It seems like that's what they had done in the past.
Right.
Introduced a month into her presidency, Sheinbaum's housing and regularization program involves a partnership between the federal government and national housing institutions. The National Workers Housing Fund Institute, Infonavit, big acronym, will build 500,000 homes, while additional 500,000 will be constructed by the National Housing Commission for those ineligibles for traditional public housing schemes. I like to use the word schemes. A key component is the zero-interest mortgage scheme, offering low-income households a path to home ownership with favorable terms. According to Rodrigo Chavez, director of Conavi, qualified beneficiaries will have access to 30-year interest-free mortgages specifically designed to ease the financial burden for Mexico's underserved citizens. And that whole like zero interest, you might even like write that off as, oh well, they're still having to pay these loans. That money still goes into banks. Blah blah blah. Well, first of all, it's going to be like kind of like a federal bank. If you have the U.S. does not have an actual central bank that is like U.S. owned, by the way. It's just a private bank, and we use it. So like private interest just gets to control like the Federal Reserve and all. That's why when you hear people talk about like let's ban the Federal Reserve, it's like what? That sounds insane. It's like no. That's just like a private bank that we decide to like put on life support with our tax money. They're like, oh, that sounds much more reasonable when you put it that way. But blah blah blah. All that considered, interest on houses. By the time you end up actually paying for your house, if you just follow your payments and pay your mortgage normally, you end up buying the house 2, if not 3 times. Like, you've probably seen these posts on Twitter. It's like, wow, I bought the bank a whole second house. So, like, just doing zero interest on these mortgages, which sounds totally reasonable if you're broke as heck and you can, like, look, I make no money. Let me do a house for zero interest. It seems like a very direct way to, like, try to take a swing at getting people in houses that is not, like, give everyone a free house forever, even, which I would be fine with. But, you know, it's not even that extreme. But the benefits... It's like, why aren't we doing... Why does this not exist in the U.S.? I mean, like, this didn't take any insane out-of-the-box thinking.
It's the same thing. It's like why we're always, like, making China sound so good. Like, no superpower, no country is good. The idea is just that, like, if you invest in your own people, you ultimately will come out better on top and have a better portrait to the rest of the world than spending all your money and efforts trying to make money for 1% of the fucking population by bombing the rest of the world into the goddamn ground. You know, so that's where we are now. And we talked about that a little bit last week about how liberals were immediately like, you know, hey, we're also as racist as the MAGA people. We were just hiding it. So, and that hasn't stopped. You know, that's still going on with the whole threatening to call ICE on people who didn't vote the way they wanted to, or, you know, telling, you know, the Arabs they hope that they turn Gaza into a parking lot and this and that and the other. So more of the same.
We got, unlike back, this is a quote from Scheinbaum, unlike back then when it was essentially a program for real estate companies, a real estate development program, this program is completely different. This initiative marks a departure from past housing projects, which often placed homes in remote areas far from employment and public services. Great, so you can get your public housing, but it's way in the hell middle of nowhere. Yeah. Instead, it focuses on creating accessible, functional houses near residents' workplaces, public services, and transportation. So, like, we'll see how it goes. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. We will see if they can accomplish that. It's just very interesting to see that coming from Mexico, a country with far fewer resources than the United States, while the United States themselves Kamala was, the one lie she did tell was she was going to give you, what, 20 or 40 or 15 something $1,000 for a down payment on a house? I don't know. I mean, I guess that's less than nothing, but...
They're going to put you on a list and then think about it. Yeah, then think about it, and maybe in 10 years you get to hear... You know, and that's the thing, and that's the affordable housing thing was something that China has really excelled at as well. You know,
everybody lives somewhere. Like, yeah, you might go, it's not luxury necessarily. You might be sharing a bedroom with someone, but no one lives on the street. Just nobody.
Just really these apartments, they're kind of, you know, brutalist in nature. That's like, you know, they're not winning any architectural awards, but they house a lot of people for very little money. And in their culture, if you are, you know, try to get away with being a slumlord, you get executed. So that's something here that we wouldn't know anything about. So, yeah, again, people are probably always wondering why the left is always putting China on a pedestal. It's not because they're such a wonderful country with such, you know, utopian standards of living. It's because they invest in their people. And now when we see places that share a border with us doing the same, we get really angry and jealous about it. So
some of our place, like, there are some decisions that can just be you can just logically approach certain problems and eliminate them. I would argue all problems, but Xi Jinping had a program of we will eliminate like absolute poverty in China by XY date, and then he sent out, so it's like, how do we approach this? Let's go about it scientifically. Let's get some party people. You're all going to report Go find all the poor people in your town. Tell us what's going on, what they need to get out of their. And then the result, like 5-6 years later, is what they set out to do. And the only way you can like get around that is you'd have to believe some conspiracy where they just round up homeless people and turn them into Soylent Green or something, and then somehow continue to not have more people slipping into that poverty. Because it's not like poor people just exist and then once you get rid of that like boom, zero sum game, the poor people are gone. It's like your economic system, the way you run your country, is going to, if it already was producing people who have to sleep in the streets and have no other option, it's going to continue producing that unless you do some kind of change. You could take every single person unhoused in America, stick them in housing. The system is just going to continue to produce more and more people who are sleeping in their cars. So like it has to be a combination of help the people who need help and have your system geared in a way that the mobility is generally upward. Every year in China, there's fewer people who are sleeping six to a room and more people in San Francisco who are sleeping six to a room. That was a good line. Somebody clip that.
I'm just getting ready to say that. Like, bravo, dude. That was nice. And, well, I mean, to piggyback off of that, good news if you need affordable housing and you're a Zionist, because Israel is now is building on Gaza as fast as possible. You know that when they were talking about, or here in America, quickly buy up your piece of Gaza. It's ready to go. Now they're throwing up settlements, and they said,
"Oh my God,
like,
I forgot.
Yeah.
I forgot they were holding like real estate auctions like in Brooklyn."
Yes, and now they are actually putting, pouring the concrete. So it's happening. You know, the expanse is happening. They've said that they definitely won't be letting Palestinians back into the Gaza area. So
and now it's like a split. I saw the charts, the maps, and it's like clearly intentionally like right in the middle. It's like let's split and then eventually.
Yeah, it makes it easier to expand outward that way. So that is underway. That's something we've been talking about for a year. That was obviously going to be the ultimate goal, was to expand the United States influence on the Middle East and put much pressure on Iran. You know, ultimately, in Saudi Arabia was, the ultimate goal, and by using Israel to do it, which would be the most likely candidate because much of it is populated by Americans already. So that's where we really are at this stage. I mean, all we can do is, because we have had, everyone in the government being on the same side of the argument that they are not going to cut off the funds for themselves. That's why they all support this. Some people are supporting it wholeheartedly. We saw a video, I think it came out yesterday or today, of Marco Rubio being point blank asked, would he stop? And he's like, no, I'm going to do it so hard, you guys. No. So that came through. So that's where he stands on that. And that's where they all stand on it. But just some of them are more vocal about it than others. And then who don't care about being the revolving villain. They don't care about if people think that they're jerks or not. And other people want to, let those people run interference for them, like the Democrats did, who would just get up and word salad some shit and be like, oh, yeah, we're going to, with the terrorism bad, and Hamas babies are also bad, and the end. Don't ask questions about that. Don't ask questions. So, a lot of them will just use those people as shields who don't mind being shields, but they're still ultimately working together for a common goal. And that is so hard for people raised on red, blue, especially, people who have, in their like 70s or 80s who have never known anything but in this country and still seem to think that it's this, magical land of milk and honey, which it is not, maybe for them who were able to game the system for so long. But people just cannot get their heads around the fact that these people might be working together. I think maybe they're getting a hint about that this time around. Now it's like 3 times of this, that we're talking about.
I hope that this becomes the same way that like Barney freaked out a lot of people who were previously on the left and now are trying to remove them. When I keep doing the quotes on right and left, it's fundamentally, if you're talking about the left and right side of something, you're talking about the left and right side of a thing. That thing being the continued support and justification of the neoliberal capitalist system that we live in. So if you move from one end of capitalism to the other end of capitalism, you're still on this same singular thing. So if you exit that thing and do anything else, that's what we're going for, and we don't have like a word for it. Like we still have just like if I describe a policy as quote left, you kind of know what I mean, as opposed to if I just go like an economically progressive policy.
Yeah.
But I hope that this is that moment, and since that happened for people after Bernie, when they're like, you know what, this is all nonsense. We watched him get cheated in 2016, cheated in 2020, and it seems that the system will do absolutely anything it needs to make sure that nothing changes. Hopefully, that's what happens with these 4 years of Trump. People go, wow, we really wanted him to do. We wanted him to stop the wars, and he didn't. We wanted him to lower prices, and he didn't. We wanted him to, fix border, whatever. Like after he is entirely ineffective for another 4 years, hopefully, a lot of people on the quote right exit the singular thing and go like, hey, maybe all of us who want to do something else and move forward in the truly capital P progressive sense can all team up and scare them into doing it, or just remove them preferably.
I'm of the mind that we have to essentially nullify the system that there is now. Like when you start talking about that, it starts to like tip into anarchism, and that's not what exactly I mean. What I mean is like we know now a system built, to favor slave owners is not working anymore. Okay, a 300-year-old system is not viable for anybody at this stage.
It keeps almost falling apart, and then it miraculously holds together for another 5 years, and we're like, oh well, now it's screwed, and then just on and on.
And it's like you want to talk about founding fathers to me. Hand one a cell phone for Christ's sake, or let them see it. Like people of color walking around free. Like they'll have a stroke. Like don't talk about founding fathers. That's a non-starter of an argument. That they could not have foreseen where things were going to go. It's not like we can't foresee where things are going to go. We can speculate a little bit, but if you go back into like the 50s, 60s and thought about what they thought past the year 2000 was going to be, it was dome cities and flying cars.
If you tell Alexander Hamilton, Hamilton that a private bank just controls the entire like finance of the U.S., he'd lose his mind anyway. You're like, what? You got to go attack that bank.
Yeah, it's so stupid. But yeah, and that was the mentality, the militia mentality, the revolutionary mentality. Like if you want to get serious about it, they were about stopping the the overlordism of England. I couldn't think of England, like the British power saying you're going to do what we tell you to do on an entirely different continent, and the Americans were like, nuh-uh, and that's basically the whole story. So if you want to take that mentality and apply it to now, it's the same thing. We have to take a system that no longer works. And I'm not saying like violently overthrow it or anything, because what happened, during protests, we just got more cops in top cities.
Give me Lib Jan 6th. I want Lib Jan 6th so bad.
Yeah, I do too, though. But I think they think that their whole, March on Washington pussy hat thing, I think they think that was their moment when they did that. So I think they Jan 6th the right way. So it's not like I'm saying like no violence works or violence works. That's not my argument. My argument is just that you can't do either one without people getting more aware and wise to what is going on and that it is not working. And they need to, even though they can't afford maybe to do big protests or go to protests, or maybe they can't, you can boycott products. You can not go to McDonald's, probably. I don't get ableist about it, but you get my point. You have to stop block so many things and say, I don't mean it this way. I mean it this way. I mean it this way and this way, but not this way. So my point is, I'm also not getting anti-woke here. I'm just saying that we just need to look at things and more objectively in a wider way. So not just like this, few hundred leftists here with podcasts, but the people, who are watching the nightly news, the people who are, have lost their pensions to 401ks, the people who are not making it, everybody thinking about like, hey, my life fucking sucks and I want a better one. And I've got kids and I want them to have a better life because they're full of plastic and they're probably not going to live long anyway. So the whole thing is we've got to look at every aspect of this, but we've got to do it on the whole or in such a wide way that people are like, we are just not going to accept this stuff anymore. Yeah. And that's the only way that anything will ever change. And I don't necessarily know that I have faith in modern America to do something like that. We are a country who is designed to bend and bend and bend and bend and bend some more. So, and then after breaking, continue to bend. So that's where we are. And I don't know that anybody could ever really get themselves, shovel themselves out of the shit, so to speak. Because the few of us out here that are like, banging the tambourine saying, hey, look at this, look at this. It's just not enough. We don't have, any kind of real organization. We don't have any real leadership because we're just a bunch of disenfranchised people who hate everything and just want to see people get what they should have in what we're told is supposed to be the best country in the world. For who? We know for who. And it's not for any of us. Again, I made 47 cents today. British pounds. So that was literally all the money I've made today. So you got anything to say about that?
Well, I have one final little two sides, one story thing. Just because I want to be on record talking about it, because this is like it kind of happened. A whole lot of change and movement happened in real time. I heard about it in one way and then heard it in a totally different way. I went, wait a second, what? There were some soccer riots in Amsterdam, and depending on who you heard about it from, very different things happened. So let's hear about it first from the Times of Israel. Hooray! They're at war, day 403. Crazy. You can get that number to go lower if you just stop doing it. History is repeating itself. Amsterdam in shock after wave of anti-Semitic violence. 2 days after mass organized attacks following soccer match in Dutch capital, residents and Jewish groups voiced dismay at events that mayor says have deeply damaged the city. All right, let's go over. I'm just going to read like the first paragraph of each of these because they're kind of long articles. 2 days after a wave of violence against Israelis in Amsterdam, which saw mass organized attacks on Thursday night following a soccer match there, residents and Jewish groups voiced shock at the events, which the mayor said had deeply damaged. Okay, sorry, just read the same thing twice there, kind of. In the Jodenbuurt, Amsterdam's Jewish quarter, members of does Joden mean Jewish in Dutch? All right, members of the community were keeping a low profile on Saturday, but one T-shirt seller at local market said he felt terrible about the violence in his home city. Israeli officials said 10 people were injured in the overnight violence by local Arab and Muslim gangs against Maccabi Tel Aviv soccer fans. Hundreds more Israelis huddled in their hotels for hours. They watched a movie, fearing they could be attacked. Many said that Dutch security forces were nowhere to be found, and the Israeli tourists were ambushed by gangs of masked assailants who shouted pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel slogans while they hunted, beat, and harassed them. The word pogrom is being thrown around. Pogrom being like
beat and harass. That is some really strong language. Hunted.
5 Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters were briefly hospitalized in attacks that. Is it Maccabi? Maccabi would make sense because that's right. The lore.
Not to get weird and correct you, it doesn't matter. If people can see the words,
the violence came amid a rise in anti-Semitism globally since the outbreak of the war in Gaza, sparked by Hamas, brutal attacks, and blah, blah. It's painful, frightening, all the same. 50-year-old T-shirt, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's go over to. Now we're going to go to People's Dispatch, the reality of the Zionist outrage in Amsterdam. You may have seen there's a whole bunch of video clips that I'm not going to show any of that has a lot of people going down this escalator chanting things that they've been translated into English, so it's always possible that it's like a mistranslation, but the things that it's being translated they're shouting are like, kill all Arabs, rape all Palestinians, there are no schools in Gaza because all the children are dead. Those are just the ones I can remember. Fans of Maccabi Tel Aviv stage a pro-Israel demonstration near Central Railway Station, lighting up flares and chanting, quote, let the IDF win and fuck the Arabs, ahead of UEFA Europa League match between Maccabi Tel Aviv and Ajax in Amsterdam, Netherlands, on November 7th. So it was like just this week. Maccabi fans clashed with Amsterdam citizens and ripped off Palestinian flags hung on the streets. A lot has been said and written in international corporate media about the disturbances in Amsterdam before and after the soccer game between the Israeli club Maccabi Tel Aviv and Ajax Amsterdam on November 7th. Most reports leave out or downplay the violence and racism that the Israeli hooligans committed and focus solely on the counterattacks by Amsterdam youth and Amsterdam cab drivers. They don't shy away from spreading outright lies. The BBC even used footage of Israeli hooligans assaulting a Dutch person and claimed that it was an Israeli being attacked. Dutch politicians, isn't this just like when protests are covered in the U.S.? Dutch politicians follow the same line. They are all eager to push the lie that the counter-factions counteractions against the Israeli supporters were an expression of anti-Semitism. Amsterdam Mayor Femke Halsema of the GroenLinks, you guys gotta like name yourselves things that are less funny if you want me to not laugh when I say your Dutch names, held a press conference in which in which I did not know Femke was a lady's name, in which she even made reference to the persecution of Jews during the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands. Quote, yesterday there was an outburst of anti-Semitism such as we had hoped to see no more in Amsterdam, she said. She asserted that actions by the Amsterdam youth against Israeli hooligans bring back memories of the pogroms. So, a thing that this article probably mentions eventually in this, but I'm not reading the whole darn thing. In this soccer match, there was a moment of silence, not for Palestine, but for Spain, because Spain recently has had like horrific flooding and a lot of casualties from that. So during this moment of silence for Spain, not for Palestine, for Spain, the Israeli cheering section was shooting off fireworks, yelling, like they're like, it wouldn't let this happen. So one of the funnier tweets I saw was like, they're claiming that a bunch of Arabs beat up a bunch of Jews in Amsterdam. It's like, no. A multicultural, multi-ethnic group of people beat up obnoxious Israeli fans for doing vandalism in the city. They have videos of like, just like some cab driver's dash cam, and he's just driving normally, and then suddenly some guy's just in the street and just like smacking his car with what is either a rope or a chain or something. And then you hear about how cab drivers started fighting the soccer fans, and it's like, oh, I understand. The soccer people were attacking cabs, and the cab drivers in Amsterdam are apparently a large percentage Moroccan. Morocco is a heavily Muslim nation, and hey, guess what? That will lead to fights.
Yeah, maybe they're not doing that so much. And this goes back to what we were talking about at the top of the hour, which is that the need for independent journalism and just people who are filming things and reporting on them is so important now because of these where the mass media and mainstream media will take these stories and spin them and even take the footage and say that it is the opposite of what that it is. If
footage of a Dutch guy getting beat up, that's an Israeli. It's like, no, it isn't.
No, that's exactly it. It's like, I understand the kind of the crisis with people of like, I don't know what to believe anymore. But if you are not following people, finding people, or finding people that you can essentially trust the word of that pass on this information, consistently, which was branded leftist type things, then you are never going to actually see what's happening to people. If we had, let's just say we had no phones or no access, no internet to show us what's been going on in Gaza, we would only have the mainstream media's take on it. And I guarantee you all of us would be like, kill the Palestinians. They sound really bad, because that's been what we've been fed if you just go by the mainstream media, that the Israelis are the victims, that they are doing God's work somehow by clearing out these evil Hamas enemies that surround themselves with children and kill all the women and whatnot. So it's a time for people to get really away from those narratives and really take responsibility for the media that you consume when it's so available to you now. This is a benefit way more than it is a negative in the world that we live in.
All right, final thing I'm going to read about this, a little bit of summary, just so someone else's words and not just me saying it. I don't know, maybe that'll lend credence to it. Go check it out is really what this all leads to. Quote, do your own research. I love that phrase has become like politically charged, but actually do your own research. Check some things. Because what they're about to describe is what I saw, and then the next day I hear this whole like pogrom Jews were hunted down for sport in Amsterdam. And like, wait, what? So what really happened in Amsterdam? The supporters and a lot of this comes from people in Amsterdam who are like, this is what I saw happen. It's not like, oh, the leftist American media is going in to spin the pro-Hamas, we love terrorism media is coming in to spin this story. This is from Dutch people who saw it happen and it happened too. The supporters of this genocide-celebrating club arrived in Amsterdam the day before the game. They went into town and immediately started running amok. Video footage shows them pulling down Palestinian flags from houses, scaring residents, burning the flags, and kicking in windows, all this while Dutch police were driving by and doing nothing. A woman from Amsterdam wrote on Twitter, "Last night, a group of Israeli hooligans were gathering beneath my window with a pro-Palestine poster. They were shouting, banging on my door, setting off fireworks. All these fireworks. For the first time in my life, I was afraid in my own house." The hooligans also attacked people in the street who looked Arab or were wearing Palestinian symbols. They also hit a taxi with a steel chain, all right, and assaulted the driver. This triggered a counteraction by cab drivers who forced the Israelis into a casino during which, into a casino during which one hooligan ended up in a canal. Funniest video clip you'll see. They jumped in the canal to get away from the cab drivers. The cab drivers pulled him out, but only after they made him yell "Free Palestine." So that was one day. There's one day, this is before the match, and people were just freaking wilding out in the streets, and the people who live there got upset and started like, hey, we're going to take matters into our own hands. The cops don't seem to be doing anything. Right. Next day, the Maccabee supporters gathered in central Amsterdam. So now they're ready. Now it's like night 2. Let's fucking ding, ding, ding. Yeah, waving Israeli flags, shouting death to Arabs and other genocidal racist slogans. They were also wearing banners with pictures of IDF soldiers and plastering the Dam, which is the central square in Amsterdam, with the same pictures of IDF soldiers. It is important to mention that all Israelis joined the IDF at age 18, so most of the Maccabee supporters. So when you say that the most of the crowd were IDF, it's like, well, yes, if you live in Israel and you turn 18, you're IDF. That's just how it works. So it's kind of everybody. All right. According to the Jerusalem Post, there were soldiers among the supporters who had just served in the genocide in Gaza. The same, that's if you want to get conspiratorial, you think that Mossad and them came in and did this on purpose to try and stir up like, oh, look, even in Amsterdam, they're killing all the Jews, or like they're beating us, pogrom, Kristallnacht, and all that. But it didn't work out because Israelis don't know, the people who go to do this just don't know how to fucking act. Like, they can't not piss off everyone they get near. Right. They're incapable of doing it. Yeah. Same paper also mentioned that there were Mossad agents traveling with the supporters. That's where that. During the day, the atmosphere in town became more and more tense and threatening. On pro-Palestine WhatsApp groups, people warned each other not to go into town alone wearing keffiyeh or other pro-Palestine symbols. Then the police escorted the Maccabee fans to the stadium. Again, they were shouting racist genocidal slogans. Police did nothing. There were anti-genocide protests planned near the stadium, but they were banned by the mayor. A protest took place in another place. Another funny thing, there is a Kristallnacht memorial thing that was supposed to be happening this week, and they had to cancel or move it because of all this nonsense started by and carried out by Israeli soccer fans. So, the very pro-Semitic Israelis made sure that a memorial for one of the atrocities of the Holocaust could not take place. Isn't that, look at that, there you go, add that to your irony bucket. Yeah.
Again, why we're always saying Zionism is not Judaism. They are not, they are not the same thing. A Zionist, what's his name? Biden went on, I can't remember, it was a nightly show once and said, I am a proud Zionist. I mean, it's not Jewish. Okay? So
that should be the end of, not every German's a Nazi or was one. They're very different things, and they're trying to tie them together to make it so every time you're like, hey, don't kill that baby, they're like, oh, you hate the Jews? It's like, that is a very different kind of statement.
Zionism is not a religious or racial identity. It's an ideology. It's a belief. If I come out and say, I believe that I am a purple person and everybody must call me purple, that would be my belief. That doesn't make it a true thing, so that's what we're talking about here. And that's where you hear over and over and over again, primarily from leftist communities trying to say, please stop conflating them. They are not the same thing. And this, as Jared just said, they got in the way of reverence of a Jewish tribute. To the victims of Kristallnacht. So, they are horrible people.
I keep seeing clips where they're like, oh, look, footage of all the Jews getting beat up in Amsterdam. And it's like, oh, no, sorry, this is in Israel where the Israeli police are beating up other Jews because they're anti-Zionist Jews. You're talking about. There's many, many anti-Zionist. Everything that I know about the Palestinian conflict, I learned from a Jewish person.
And you see some of the footage that you see that I think is confusing a lot of mainstream people quite a lot is that you see now, I'm not an expert here. It's not my field of expertise, but just an overview. Hasidic Jews have a large population in New York, and they're the ones that you see in traditional dress with the, the hats and the curls and that kind of thing. And they are some of the most outspoken people against Zionism. They're some of the ones that you are seeing that are actually out there, burning Israeli flags and saying Israel does not, we are not Israel. Israel does not represent us. It's not part of our heritage. It's not part of our culture. We believe that's not against our beliefs, because they are the most devout
Yeah.
faction of Judaic people, right?
They're strict
And
pacifists, and they don't believe in like, hey, we're gonna kick in your door and take over your country.
right,
Like
and
that's
they
not a
have
thing.
reverence for what happened in the Holocaust and how actual Jewish people have been treated throughout history, and that is why that they are on the side of Palestinians, or at least why on the side of peace, because they won't associate themselves with people who are enacting the exact same mentalities against another disparaged group of people.
And they won't serve in the military, which is a big reason you see them getting beat up in the streets in Israel.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's not like a contest or a slider or a meter, but who is more Jewish than us, the dudes wearing the full garb and ringlets and stuff, and you're going to say that you're doing this on behalf of Jews? For the safety of the Jewish people, we must beat up certain Jewish people. Don't even mention the Ethiopian Jews who happen to have a different skin color, and way in the beginning in Israel, they were not included in the Zionist project, very conveniently.
Exactly. And does that make them, like, better than all other people? No, it doesn't. It just makes them a different type of
Makes them
people.
correct on this issue, though.
Precisely. Yeah, you might say that, oh, well, a lot of the time you get bad faith arguments where people come at you and be like, oh, well, they
They believe in arranged marriages.
Yeah, right? Yeah, they'll come at you and be like, they disrespect women, they don't respect body autonomy, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, we're not talking about that, okay? What we're talking about right now is, okay, we'll have that conversation later. We're talking right now about the, probably up into the, at least 1 million at this point, lives that have been needlessly lost and definitely destroyed of Muslim and Arab people in their homeland of Palestine, at the behest of the West, primarily the United States, for the dollar signs that they see. And I'm not, obviously we're not privy to what the backdoor deal or backroom deals that have been made, but about the whole thing. So we don't know what America stands to gain, but we have said it over and over in this show, and we will see it eventually, I'm sure, that that deal that it's going to come due. What we as America have put into all of this, we're getting something out of in some way. Not us as the people, but obviously, but the people running the game in the show. And then when you have that kind of a government, that makes the government corrupt, which in some way or another, up to your interpretation, needs to be nullified. That's where we stand right now. So as you can see, Mr. Jared has picked up his guitar. So that means Nicolette needs to shut her mouth. So thank you for joining us for another episode. We're glad to be with you. Next week we celebrate a year in business, quote unquote, a year on the air, and we hope you'll join us for that. We'll probably just be laughing and talking shit about some dumb stuff. So make sure you join us for that. And otherwise, we will see you then, and we are going to now enjoy the wonderful styling of their fantastic music. So enjoy, everyone. Have a good week. Bye.
So this is a parody of a Weezer song that is going to be part of my extremely long China travel vlog. I went to China last year, and I'm finally getting together this video about it, including a bunch of pictures and videos. So we'll talk all about that when it comes out. You can see my trip. I wrote this in Shanghai as opposed to the Weezer song In the Garage. They got a really fast train, massage to help with your pain. They got frequent rain in fall and summer too, waiting there for me. Yes, they do. They do. They got fresh fish. They got places you can piss. They got big freeway and my greatest wish, high-speed trains for cheap. Yes, they do. They do. In Shanghai, I feel safe. No one cares about my ways. In Shanghai, where I can't talk, let's go for a lovely walk. In Shanghai, got me a tiny guitar, play my stupid show. Meet these Chinese furries, and I love everyone for being there for me. Yes, I do. I do. In Shanghai, I feel safe. Saxophone the time away. In Shanghai, I saw a cat and ate massive cubes of fat. In Shanghai, in Shanghai. There's a guitar solo here. In Shanghai, I feel safe. All these bikes can block your way. In Shanghai, there's so much food. Chewing loudly is not rude. Wo bu wei, shuo zhong wen. Can't you see I make wo red? In Shanghai, sing all night long. No one hears me, no one hears me, no one hears me, no one hears me, no one hears me say things wrong.